Hi, I'm Darian and this is Your Daily Question. This video marks the beginning of the new test walkthrough series, where I go through entire tests in various math competitions. Today we'll be going over questions 1 through 30 in the 2020 4th and 5th grade Math Physical Championships. Question 1. What's the positive difference between 345 and 159? A positive difference is basically the difference that results in a positive number. In this case, 345 minus 159 equals 186, a positive number, so it is our answer. Question 2. Round 7926.1847 to the nearest hundredth. The hundredth place is the second digit right of the decimal point, so it is the 8. Then we look at the thousandths digit, as that will decide whether we round up. As the thousandths digit is a 4, and we need a digit of 5 or higher to round up, we don't round up. Therefore, the 8 will remain an 8, and we turn all digits in lesser place values to 0, giving our answer of 7926.18. Question 3. How many sides does a nonagon have? In this question, you need to know what a nonagon is. For those who don't know, a nonagon is a shape with 9 sides, which gives our answer of 9. There is no other way of calculating the answer. This question tests your math vocabulary. Because of these questions, I highly suggest memorizing the names of shapes up to 10 sides, as they will pop up in higher levels of math. Question 4. Find the next term in the arithmetic sequence, 2, 5, 8. An arithmetic sequence is a sequence that of terms differ by a number known as a common difference. In this case, the common difference is 3, since 2 plus 3 equals 5, 5 plus 3 equals 8, and so on. As we need the next term is 8 plus 3 equals 11, which is our answer. Question 5. What's the product of 24 and 5? Product means the same thing as multiplying, so the product of 24 and 5 is just 24 times 5 equals 120, which is our answer. Question 6. What number is halfway between 26 and 8? If we put 8 and 26 on a number line, isn't calculating the midpoint the same thing? It is. Therefore, calculating a number halfway between 26 and 8 can be done using the midpoint formula. The midpoint formula is x1 plus x2 divided by 2, where x1 and x2 are the endpoints. In this case, the number halfway between 26 and 8 is 26 plus 8 divided by 2 equals 34 divided by 2 equals 17, which is our answer. Question 7. Yadira is making scrambled eggs for her math team. If she bought 5 dozen eggs and used 37 of them, how many eggs does she have left? Since the dozen is 12, 5 dozen eggs is 5 times 12 equals 60 eggs. Therefore, if she used 37 eggs, she has 60 minus 37 equals 23 eggs left, which is our answer. Question 8. What's the measure of an angle that is supplementary to an angle measuring 76 degrees? Supplementary means two angles that sum to 180 degrees, so if an angle is 76 degrees, the other angle must be 180 minus 76 equals 104 degrees to be supplementary, which is our answer. Question 9. Today is Friday. Andrea's birthday was 2 days ago. Her best friend's birthday was 25 days later. What day of the week will it be when it is her friend's birthday? If today is Friday, and Andrea's birthday was 2 days ago, then her birthday was on a Wednesday. Then we notice that every 7 days, the day of the week does not change. For example, if today is a Tuesday, then the 7 days would go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, which once again lands on our original day. This is because there are 7 days in a week that are in a loop. This pattern is called a modular pattern. Knowing this, 7 days later, it will be a Wednesday. 14 days later, also Wednesday, as 14 is a multiple of 7. Same as 21. Therefore, 21 days later, it will be a Wednesday. Now, instead of counting 25 days, we only need to count 4 days. Thursday is the 22nd day, Friday is the 23rd day, Saturday is the 24th day, and Sunday is the 25th day, which gives our answer a Sunday. Question 10. Calculate 7 squared plus 50. 7 squared is basically 7 times 7, so 7 squared plus 50 equals 49 plus 50 equals 99, which is our answer. Question 11. Leia makes mistakes twice during the span of 30 minutes while doing her math homework. If she continues making mistakes at the same rate, how many mistakes will Leia make during 4 hours of math homework? First, we can convert 4 hours to 240 minutes, as there are 60 minutes in an hour. Then, we can make a proportion. 30 over 240 equals 2 over x, where x is the number of mistakes Leia makes in 4 hours. Cross multiplying gets us 30x equals 480, or x equals 16, which is our answer. Question 12. An equilateral triangle has a side length of 9. What is its perimeter? By definition, an equilateral triangle is a triangle where the 3 side lengths are the same. Therefore, with a side length of 9, the equilateral triangle has perimeter 9 times 3 equals 27, which is our answer. Question 13. Calculate the product 3/4 times 1/2. When multiplying fractions, you multiply the numerator with numerator and denominator with denominator. Therefore, 3/4 times 1/2 equals 3/8, which is our answer. Question 14. Alan is playing Fortnite against Manuel. There are 98 other players in the Battle Royale match. As a common fraction, what's the probability that either Alan or Manuel wins? To find the probability that Alan or Manuel wins, we need to get the number of successful outcomes divided by the number of total outcomes. First, we find out there are 100 players in a Battle Royale match, since Alan and Manuel are not included in the 98 other players, and we need to include them. Then, we can find the number of successful and total outcomes. Since Alan winning and Manuel winning is both a successful outcome, there are 2 successful outcomes. However, there are 100 total outcomes as there are 100 players, and each of those players winning individually is an outcome, making 100 outcomes. Therefore, the odds of Alan or Manuel winning is 2 over 100, or 1 over 50, which is our answer. Question 15. Bryson wants to buy a new carpet for his bedroom. If the length of the room is 10 feet and the width is 13 feet, what is the area of the carpet he must buy? The area of a rectangle is just length times width, so the area of the carpet he must buy is just 10 times 13 equals 130 square feet, and that is our answer. Question 16. Write 5 over 16 as an improper fraction. An improper fraction is a fraction whose numerator is greater than the denominator. We can do so by converting 5 into 6. Since 1 equals 6 over 6, 5 is 5 times that, or 30 over 6. Therefore, 5 and 1/6 is 30 over 6 plus 1 over 6 equals 31 over 6, and that is our answer. Question 17. Hallie starts playing Legos at 10:40 a.m. If she plays with Legos for 178 minutes, what time does she finish playing with Legos? Although you could separate 178 minutes into 2 hours and 58 minutes, you can solve this question faster by adding 3 hours and subtracting 2 minutes. In this case, adding 3 hours to 10:40 a.m. brings the time to 1:40 p.m. and subtracting 2 minutes gives our answer of 1:38 p.m. Question 18. Rosaline is a competitive swimmer. She has won 10 races and lost 5 races. What fraction of all her races did Rosaline win? To find this fraction, we need the number of races Rosaline won over the total number of races Rosaline did. Rosaline won 10 races and did 10 plus 5 equals 15 races, so the fraction is 10 over 15, or 2 over 3, and that is our answer. Question 19. When Carly is 4 years old, Will is 3 times her age. How old will Carly be when Will is 21? Since Will is 3 times Carly's age when she was 4, Will would be 3 times 4 equals 12 years old. Then we add 9 years to both Carly and Will's age, since in that time, Will would have been 12 plus 9 equals 21 years old. Then Carly would have been 4 plus 9 equals 13 years old, and that is our answer. Question 20. A triangle has a base of 9 and a height of 15. What is the area of the triangle as a decimal to the nearest tenth? The area of a triangle is half times base times height, so its area is just half times 9 times 15, or 135 divided by 2. Since the question asks for the area as a decimal, we divide 135 by 2 by using long division to get our answer of 67.5. Question 21. Gannon has a favorite 3-digit number. The second digit is twice as big as the first digit. The third digit is 3 less than the second digit. What's the largest possible value for Gannon's favorite number? First, notice that the second digit is twice as big as the first digit. Also notice that the largest possible value for a digit is 9. Therefore, to maximize the first digit, we assign the second digit as 9, so the first digit is 9 divided by 2 equals 4.5. However, a digit cannot be a decimal, so we must round down to the nearest integer, so the first digit is 4, and the second digit being twice that, or 8. This works and is the biggest possible value for the first digit. Anything bigger, like 5, push the second digit into a double-digit number, which cannot happen. Now, we find out that the third digit is 3 less than the second digit, so the third digit is 8 minus 3 equals 5. Finally, we get the largest possible value for Gannon's favorite number is going to be 485. Question 22. The Baby Shark song has received 2.3 billion views on YouTube. If the owner of the video gets 1/10 of a penny for each view, how much have they earned in dollars from YouTube views? Since the owner gets 1/10 of a penny for each view, the owner gets 1 penny for every 10 views, as 10 times 1/10 of a penny equals 1 penny. This makes the question much easier. We can divide 2.3 billion by 10 to get to that the owner earns 230 million pennies for the song. Finally, the question asks for dollars, so using the 100 pennies to equal $1 conversion, we divide 230 million by 100 to get $2.3 million, and that is our answer. Question 23. Taya and her friend Miguel have a lot of pet cats. Miguel has twice as many cats as Taya. Altogether, their cats have 24 eyes. How many cats does Taya have? Define the number of cats Taya has as an x. Then Miguel has twice as many cats, or 2x. Together, they have 3x cats. Also note that each cat has 2 eyes, so 3x cats have 3x times 2 equals 6x eyes. Therefore, 6x equals 24, and x equals 4. Since x represents the number of cats Taya have, we get our answer of 4. Question 24. A rectangle measures 12 meters by 5 meters. What is its area in square centimeters? First things first, we must convert the dimensions to centimeters. Since 100 centimeters are in a meter, the dimensions become 1200 centimeters by 500 centimeters. Then we can multiply the dimensions to get 600,000 square centimeters, and that is our answer. Question 25. Naomi is sharing a Hershey bar with her friends. She gives 1/3 of it to her friend Rachel, then 1/4 to her friend Tyler, and then 1/12 to her friend Cameron. If a Hershey bar is evenly divided into 12 pieces, how many pieces of Hershey bar does Naomi have left? First, we can find out the fraction of the Hershey bar Naomi gives away. She gives away 1/3 plus 1/4 plus 1/2, 1/12 equals 4/12 plus 3/12 plus 1/12 equals 8/12 of the Hershey bar away. This means that she has 1 minus 8/12 equals 4/12 of a Hershey bar left. As the Hershey bar is split into 12 equal pieces, and each piece is 1/12 of the bar, and so she has 4 pieces remaining, and that is our answer. However, you can also write the fraction she gives away to her friends in terms of Hershey pieces, and solve it that way. Question 26. Write the fraction 6/8 as a percentage. First, we can divide 6/8 using long division, and we get 0.75. Then, we can use the decimal to percentage conversion rule, which states that 0.01 equals 1%. As 0.75 is 75 times larger, we need to make 1% 75 times larger, which gives our answer of 75%. Note that this is the slow method of solving this question, and experienced math competitors will memorize common fractions conversion. For example, you can simply simplify 6/8 equals 3/4, and knowing that 3/4 equals 0.75, you can convert it to a percentage as mentioned above. Question 27. Kylene can complete one math problem every 3 minutes. If there are 35 questions on her math test, how many hours, round to the nearest hundredth, does it take Kylene to finish the test? First, since Kylene can finish a question every 3 minutes and there are 35 questions on the test, it will take her 3 times 35 equals 105 minutes. However, this question wants to answer in terms of hours, so we convert 105 minutes to hours by dividing it by 60. Therefore, it will take Kylene 105 divided by 60 hours, and doing some long division gets us 1.75 hours, which is our answer. Question 28. Little brown bats can eat half their body weight in insects every night. If a single bat weighs 8 grams, how much would it eat during the months of June, July, and August? Assume the bat does not gain body weight during this time. First, we find that the bat can eat 8 divided by 2 equals 4 grams of insects every night. Then we find that there are 30 days in June, 31 in July, and 31 in August for a combined 92 days. Note that the number of days in a question in a month is necessary to solve this question. I highly suggest memorizing the number of days in every month, as this information will be priceless. Now that we know the number of days and the amount of insects that a bat eats every night, we just multiply. 4 grams times 92 days equals 368 grams, which is our answer. Question 29. How many different ways are there to arrange the letters in the word lion? This question requires a basic understanding of combinatorics. If there is a word that has n unique letters, then there are n letters you can put in the first spot, then n minus 1 for the next spot, until you reach 1. Therefore, there are n times n minus 1 times n minus 2, all the way to 1 ways to organize the word. This operation, which can be represented with the exclamation mark, is called factorial. Moving back to the question, we see that 4 letters in lion are all unique, so we can apply this thinking. Since n equals 4, There are 4 times 3 times 2 times 1 equals 24 ways to organize the word, and that is our answer. Question 30. Find the area of the unshaded portion of the figure. There are many ways to solve this question, but the most straightforward is to calculate the area of the large square and subtract all the shaded triangles to isolate the shaded portion. The side length of the large square is 6 plus 6 equals 12, so its area is 12 times 12 equals 144. Then we subtract the 4 shaded triangles, each with base 6 and height 6. Therefore, the shaded triangle has area 1/2 times 6 times 6 equals 18. And so the 4 shaded triangles have a combined area of 4 times 18 equals 72. Finally, we get the area of the large square and subtract the shaded area to get the unshaded area, or 144 minus 72 equals 72 square units, and that is our answer. Alternatively, if you are a little more advanced, you can calculate the area of the unshaded portion outright. Since the shaded triangle is an isosceles right triangle, it is a 45-45-90 triangle. Therefore, the triangle's hypotenuse, or the longest side, is 6 square root 2. Then we can prove that the unshaded portion is a square, since each angle of the unshaded portion plus 2 corner angles of the shaded triangle equals the side length. Since the corner angles are each 45 degrees, a trait from the 45-45-90 triangle it is part of, and a side has 180 degrees, the unshaded portion's angle measure is 180 minus 2 times 45 equals 90, which is a right angle. This reasoning can be repeated for each angle on the unshaded portion, proving that the unshaded portion is a square. Since the area of the square is just the side length squared, the area is 6 root 2 squared equals 6 times 6 times square root 2 times square root 2, and 6 times 6 equals 36, and square roots cancel to make 2, simplifying the expression to 36 times 2 equals 72. That's all I have for you today. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.